Hey guys, I am doing a diamond heist today, and I have two assistants with me that are gonna seal the show. So, the topic of today is mental health and maternal health, and the institutional bias that is found in medicine. So it's a very heavy topic, and we are going to rock it. I have very special guests with me today. I have Dr. Stacy. She is a pediatrician. She is a medical correspondent. She is a board certified pediatrician, like I said, and she is also a top seller of her book. So she'll tell you all about it. I also have Dr. Stacy Jackson, which is the founder of Physicians Working Together, which is a group that helps physicians. She's also a founder of a website and a program that is sorry. I'm nervous. Help me. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. Yes. Inspiredempower.org. She's wonderful. Also, we are live, so live it always makes me nervous. And I don't know what to do now, so take it away. Let me see here. Sorry.
It's okay. Much love.
Okay. So, okay. Please introduce yourselves, starting with Dr. Stacy.
Okay. Hi. Good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Stacy Cary-Thompson. I am a board certified pediatrician. I am a best-selling author, and I'm also a parenting coach at Carrie Cares Parenting, where I'm the founder and CEO. With my coaching program at Carrie Cares Parenting, I help parents and parent proxies unlock their phenomenal parenting power by working with them on effective strategies, personalized advice, and I also provide an extended village to walk with them on navigating their parenthood journey. And we transform lives for generations. Take it away, Dr. Kimberly.
All right. Hi. So delighted to be here. And Dr. Joyce, love to you, baby. It's all good. We know what happens. We know you mean well. And we all have been working hard, doing great things. And sometimes it's just one of those things we get tongue tied. It just shows that we're human. And I think this is something beautiful for everyone to see. Black women doing the thing, and we're human, and we do what we can, and we make it work. So yes, I am Dr. Kimberly Jackson. I'm a family medicine physician, and I practice in Phoenix City, Alabama. I'm licensed in Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. I also started Physicians Working Together, which is a nonprofit organization that connects, collaborates because we care about our patients, our physicians, and our communities. We started National Physicians Week. So we took Doctors Day from March 30th to the whole week, the 25th through the 31st. We invite you to celebrate our 9th anniversary of that and our 10th year anniversary. Next year, we're going to be doing something amazing, a Met Gala, so you hear more about that. I recently authored a book called The Sun is Rising, starting my new brand, Inspire and Empower with Dr. J. And I'm just so excited to be here. And I stand on the shoulders, as we say, and we've talked before, Black History Month, of the many amazing Black physicians that come before us and just persons even outside of the medical field that's gotten us to where we are. So delighted to be here. We hope you all understand, appreciate, and can learn from what we're sharing today. And we're open to your input as well. So just excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And my name is Dr. Joyce, and I'm a double board certified diamond writer, and I'm double board certified in addiction medicine and family medicine. I'm standing on the shoulders of Dr. Crumpler, Dr. Lawrence, Dr. Bath, Dr. Dickens, Dr. Kennedy, Dr. Christensen, and Dr. Elders. They were the first Black female physicians. So kudos to them.
Yes, absolutely.
So we have a very exciting show tonight. We are going to start off with a sober moment. If you're aware that Alabama has passed a law for IVF eggs to be treated as children, so that gives them rights, and also have major implications of their parents and their caretakers, because they are in little tiny eggs in little tiny refrigerators right now, and they are subject to temperature changes and stuff like that, and there no children should be in a refrigerator, right? So you can imagine all of the implications that it has. So what are your thoughts, Dr. Stacy, as a pediatrician, knowing this?
Oh my goodness, that is that is such an interesting question. So I think that before we really delve in, let's kind of set the stage for our audience a little bit to give them even a little bit more background about how we got here, right? So it's been all over the news, this whole IVF thing and Alabama. And so what happened? So it happened on February 16th. So very recently, that's when the Alabama Supreme Court decided that frozen embryos would be considered children. Now, the background of this is that there are 3 plaintiffs who are IVF couples, and they utilize a fertility clinic within a hospital in Alabama. And these 3 couples, they were successful with their IVF journey, and they all have children. But as is standard with IVF or in vitro fertilization, the standard is that oftentimes there are additional embryos that are created through this process. And when that happens, they can be stored for later use. So in December of 2020, a patient at the hospital, somehow, some way, I really couldn't find a lot of great details about how that happened, but in effect, a patient at the hospital trespassed into the fertility clinic, and they were able to access the area where these embryos were being held. Now, the way the embryos are stored is they are stored at freezing or sub-freezing temperatures for preservation. And so if you can imagine touching a hot stove, you would sort of draw your hand back, right? Right, because you got burned. Well, you can also get freezer burn as well because the temperatures were so cold. And so what happened is this individual, when they reached into the tank, it was super duper cold. They were shocked, and the apparatus that they were lifting up, they dropped it, and essentially they destroyed the embryos. Now, naturally, the parents, they were upset that this happened. And so they chose to file a lawsuit against the hospital as well as the fertility clinic. And the important part is that there were sort of 2 separate pieces to this lawsuit. So one of the things that they were suing for was negligence and wantonness. And I have some notes here to make sure that I'm not misinforming our audience. So negligence being failure to behave with a level of care that a reasonable person would, under the same circumstances, act in that way. And then wantonness is conduct carried with a reckless or conscious disregard of the rights or safety of others. So kind of with the scenario that we have, that sort of makes sense that they would feel that somebody in this scenario was negligent. Somebody in this scenario was wanton. Now, whether we're talking about the actual individual or the hospital or the fertility clinic, I'll leave that to the legal team. But here's the other really important piece of what is happening. So they also wanted to sue for wrongful death under the Wrongful Death of a Minor Act, which is an Alabama statute dating back to 1872. And so essentially, this allows the parents of a deceased child to bring a claim seeking punitive damages. And so what happened initially, they took this to trial court, and the judge said, well, no, actually, I disagree. I don't think that we can sue on this particular ground, that being the Wrongful Death of a Minor Act. And the 3 plaintiffs, they decided to appeal. And that's when it went to the Alabama Supreme Court. And that judge that judge decided that the Wrongful Death of a Minor Act does apply, and I quote, to all unborn children without limitation, and that includes unborn children who are not located in utero at the time they are killed. So we are entering some uncharted waters. But I just thought it was important for us to kind of provide a background for what's really happening, kind of how we got here, and what's at stake. So, Dr. Kimberly, what are your thoughts about this scenario?
So great job, Dr. Stacy. Thank you. Actually, I think I
Yes.
got some information from you hearing about it. And so as a physician, one that's practicing in Alabama, trying to be here and provide care and services to our community, a lot of this is disheartening, because I think for a lot of people, when you get into this area where it crosses religious and political and just emotional feelings of persons feeling like, this was my unborn child, this was my chance at pregnancy, this is my chance to have a family, and someone destroyed that, and I need some type of compensation for that. I need some type of acknowledgement for that. I see some type of retribution for those acts. And sometimes when we're acting in those ways, whether it's us as human beings or even in the political system, where folks are just acting in the role of judge or jury or whatever, they don't, to humbly state it, think far enough ahead about what their decisions are going to, what their decision is going to bring about. And so in this situation where the Supreme Court decided to say, yes, they could proceed with a wrongful death, and yes, these embryos are considered to be children and they should be protected as such, I don't think they were taking into account, okay, all the ways that this can affect a lot of people. The fact that, okay, for these persons that want to do IVF, if you have an institution or physicians that are now not willing to do it because they don't really know what's going to happen. Am I going to penalize myself if an accident happens, or if another person does some type of role that comes in and destroys these, and is my license gone? Is my hospital closed? Are we going to be getting all these suits from all these different persons? And then now you have these people that want to have children that, are looking to IVF for it and already had the process started, that now they've had it stopped. And they didn't really have a good, I think, idea of the repercussions of this, of their ruling, as well as how it was going to affect future things. It's just, like you say, uncharted territory. So my feeling is, my heart goes out, of course, to those persons that their embryos were destroyed. I mean, I can't even imagine. That's heartbreaking. And my heart goes out to those that are in the process of getting, their family started through IVF, because now all that's on hold, because you have, I want to say UAB, one of course, our largest hospitals here, that had to cease because they're like figuring out, what do we do? And then you have all the people that were potentially hoping to do this. And then you get into the other issues. Okay, is an embryo, a child? And what about conception? What do you do? And I'm telling you, I was literally in the hair salon recently, and the question comes up, and they were like, oh, well, the heartbeat starts when the baby's first born. And then the heartbeat starts when where it's first implanted. It's so much misinformation out there. And even with the information of the heartbeat seeing at, I think that's the things are 4 to 6 weeks. You ladies can correct me. And at that time, I had to even explain to the ladies in the salon, that's cardiac tissue that isn't a heart, So we throw out a lot of things because a lot of times people have their own agenda. And I think this was, unfortunately, these persons had this experience to them, and it could have possibly been, someone taking advantage of the situation to move forward a political agenda. It could have been they thinking they were doing the best things for it, but I just think it wasn't well thought out. And my opinion has been backed by the fact that now our Alabama Senate and House are like scrambling, because they're like, oh goodness, now we got to figure out, how do we protect IVF? How do we help those families that want to have more children? Because if the intent is we want people to be able to have autonomy over their body, and they want to be able to have these decisions to have families, well, if you decrease the options for them to create their families, then you're going to decrease the ability for folks to be able to have children. So it's, it just wasn't, I think, a well thought out process. And now they're trying to kind of scramble and get it taken care of. But like I said, my heart goes out to all those involved, because just on either side, when you're trying to have a child, and those of us that are mothers, and myself included, because a lot of people assume if you have a child, like it was no problem. They just kind of see the baby, right? And they never really knew exactly what you went through to get to the child. Or even the case where you're asking a woman, why don't you have children? Or, oh, when you're going to have another one? I used to hear like, oh, your baby's so beautiful. When you're having another one? And there's a large gap between my first and second daughter, but I was having some things between those times. So, you're taking these issues that are personal, that are emotional, that are charged with all these political, religious, other things, and you throw it into sometimes a court system where they don't have all the information or don't take all of the information in stride, and they end up making a decision like this, and now we're all having to try to rethink it and basically backtrack and kind of say, okay, what can we fix? How can we help this? Because one, being in the state of Alabama, I know we have a difficult time recruiting physicians to this area as it is. And I know as we're going to talk about, maternal health and all of those things, maternal mortality, you have to have, qualified physicians and institutions that are willing to be in your area to provide the services that you need. So you took something where it was just a horrible situation and the ruling appears to have made it worse. So I just feel like that hopefully there will be some type of solution or some type of way that they will fix this. That's my prayer and hope.
That's excellent. And you brought up an interesting topic. We love our beauty salons and our barbershops, and they are our mental health facilities right now. Mm-hmm. So I would like to just take this moment and talk about the mental health, because the mental health includes the emotional, physical, psychological well-being, affecting how we think, feel, act, and affects how we handle stress and relate to others and make choices. Mm-hmm. So again, Dr. Stacy, how do you feel that us as the Black communities and Black physicians handle mental health at this stage, especially being a pediatrician that you are? And I pose the same question to you, Dr. Kimberly, about being a family practitioner and also looking out for our well-being, our physicians' well-being. How do you think, because that physicians don't seek mental health because we're afraid to lose our licenses, right? Mm-hmm. So I would pose this question to you, Dr. Stacy, and then you, Dr. Kimberly, after.
So mental health, I think that in recent years, we've started to get better about just talking about it. That's the first thing, right? Being willing to talk about it, to call a thing, to name what it is that we are experiencing. Because I think that in years past, in Black and Brown communities, it was often thought that, well, addressing mental health that's a white people thing. That's what white people do. And there was sort of a privilege attached to being able to do that, because in so many Black and Brown communities, we just have to get stuff done. We have to continue to press on. And also, when we think about addressing mental health with a practitioner, there is an additional expense that we might not always be able to afford. So when it comes to mental health, there are myriad reasons as to why in Black and Brown communities, it's been a difficult subject to navigate. I think that also, especially for Black and Brown communities where religion is a cornerstone, instead of, I think, dealing with mental health from a medical and psychiatric perspective, there's been more emphasis on, taking it to Jesus and praying about it and those types of things. And I think the important thing to appreciate is that it doesn't have to be an either or thing. We can do both. You can believe in God and you can be depressed. You can believe in God and you can talk to a therapist. You can believe in God and you can take medication if that is what's needed for you to be most healthy. But I say that I think that mental health and the conversation surrounding it has improved in recent years because of COVID, quite honestly. Mm-hmm. I think that was sort of an impetus for all of us to really examine what the factors of mental health are, how those can be impacted. And I think because of the collective trauma that we all share from the pandemic, that really started some conversations that were, I think, long overdue. But Dr. Joyce, you also you asked me about like mental health and pediatrics, right?
Yeah.
So the
But
interesting thing here,
I want to interrupt just a minute and
sure, sure.
address the comments that are coming in.
Oh, yes, please.
Yes, and also don't forget to like, share, subscribe, because we are growing. We are bringing in multiple speakers, and we want to share. So just don't forget. So Terry Stevenson is saying, I'm learning so much. I was not aware of this information. We also have let me see here. What happens if the parents have a child and no longer want the embryos because it is expensive to store them? I don't know if anybody can answer that. I mean, I don't know what happens then, because now, in the case of the parent, like I guess they have to put them up for adoption, right? Because it's now a child, right? So nobody doesn't want a child after they have them, right? So I guess whatever happens when a parent doesn't want a child, and they put them up for adoption, or submits them to their relatives. It's the same thing, right?
They're still figuring it out. And these
Yeah.
questions, that's an excellent question. And I think that's one of the things, like I was basically referencing, that they didn't think through when some of these
Yeah.
situations. Okay, so now are you going to prosecute these parents that don't want this additional embryos? And I think that's, a lot of the fear and concern. And so a lot of the institutions have stopped the IVF process because of those questions, because they don't know what the next step is. Are we going to prosecute me, prosecute the doctor, the hospital? So that question, we don't have an answer for it, because they literally are now trying to legislate and fix.
Yeah, and a lot of times, multiple embryos are produced.
Correct.
Because a lot of times they don't take. So a lot of times you have the case where a lot more children, I guess, are made unintentionally, because who knows what it'll take and what isn't. And the selection of boys and girls, I guess, can't be done anymore, right?
There are so many questions that
Yeah.
we really have to take the time to consider. And it's an excellent question to ask. Like, well, what happens if the parents don't want the embryos anymore? Again, I don't know the answer to that. And like Dr. Kimberly said, the doctors and patients as well, they're concerned about whether or not they are going to incur civil or criminal liability if they were to discard the embryos. And, or even, because this is uncharted territory, what we're also dealing with is that just the issue of, like, what happens, for instance, if a family, if they decide to transfer their embryos to another state, they say, you know what, I'm tired of Alabama, let's, store these somewhere else. But you know what? Transportation of embryos is on hold as well, because, the driver doesn't know what's going to happen if, let's say, there is some type of malfunction with the vehicle or with the equipment in the vehicle that
Car
is
accident.
keeping these embryos at a certain temperature, or things that are just out of your control, God forbid, a car accident.
Yeah.
Then what happens? I mean, if there's a car accident, the car is totaled, the equipment inside is wrecked, and the embryos get destroyed, are we going to prosecute that? Is that something that the driver should be liable for, because we're calling these embryos children? I think the other thing that we really have to think about is, how far are we going to take this? If we're calling them children, are we now saying, can we claim them on taxes? I mean, how far are we going to go with this?
And is their storage now tax deductible?
Yes, there are so many questions that came to my mind, and it also made me think about some other things within the realm of reproductive health. Even outside of IVF, just with pregnancy, there can be a lot of uncertainties.
Yes.
So, for instance, you can get pregnant the natural old-fashioned way, or whatever the case may be, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you are guaranteed to walk away with a healthy child at the end of 40 weeks. You could have a stillbirth. And so that got me to thinking, okay, well, do they consider these children? Do they consider these children, or the products of stillbirth? Do they consider this a child? And according to the IRS, I learned that in order to claim a newborn child as a dependent, they have to be born alive with proof, such as a certificate of live birth. So stillborn children are not dependents, but the question becomes, will that change? The question becomes, are we going to now introduce something that is not necessarily a certificate of live birth, but are we going to introduce something like a certificate of personhood to acknowledge these embryos that we are calling children? Are they going to get social security numbers? Like I said, are they going to be able to be claimed on taxes? And in the instance of scenarios where we're dealing with someone who has either donated an egg or donated sperm, who is responsible for these children? Is it the donors?
Who's paid child support, right?
Intended parents? Like, what are
Questions go on and on and on. We could do this all night.
Absolutely.
And so it's just they go
Absolutely.
on.
And how long is responsibility supposed to be accounted for these children? Is it until the embryos are 18? Is it until the age of 26 in accordance with the Affordable Care Act and how long you can stay on your parents' insurance? Or is it for a maximum of 55 years, which is the current standard for how long you can freeze embryos? So this is really interesting. It's also a little bit upsetting because we have people who are making such important decisions who unfortunately don't have the expertise to sort of back up and to go down these roads that are very, very nuanced. So I think that as we continue to have this conversation, we need the input of our reproductive endocrinologists and infertility specialists. We need the input of our bioethicists and so much more, because there are questions that that need to be answered before we continue down the slippery slope.
So let's go back to Dr. Kimberly with her comments, and then get back to the mental health. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, because I want to bring on more doctors to have more topics. So don't forget.
So to go on along with the mental health, so for me, we have a motto in our clinic, and our clinic motto is live life well. And it's living it well emotionally, financially, physically, spiritually, and mentally. And I always tell my patients, in order to truly be healthy, you have to have a healthy mind. Just because it's not something you automatically see or we can check as far as like your blood pressure, your sugar, it truly impacts everything that you do. And in order to be mentally healthy, you have to do things, of course, that help with your physical health. So regularly exercise, drink water. If you're going to drink alcohol in moderation, don't smoke. But it's also things like surrounding yourself with positivity, keeping, having the time to give to others. I have a philosophy that it's like, I'm blessed to be a blessing. Those things help with your mental health as well. And one of the things that's not talked about a lot, and we're talking about families, we're talking about kids, and we're talking about just communities, is physicians' mental health, because we're healers, and sometimes the healer themselves has to be healed. And so one of the reasons I started Physicians Working Together was because I had a dear friend named Valerie. She had 4 children. She was a pediatrician, and unfortunately, Valerie hung herself. And it was one of those things that it shocks a lot of people when they realize that the statistics is like 1 in 4 docs, unfortunately takes their lives. So I'm like, think about it as like a whole medical school class of people that are taking their lives. And it's so many factors that attribute to that. And of course we have, with modern medicine now, we have the burnout, some people call it, basically just physical trauma to ourselves, not being appreciated by Gents, not being appreciated by the hospital systems, definitely not being appreciated by the insurance companies. And then you have all these factors. You're trying to make sure you take care of the patient, and then you're human yourself. So whether you have kids you're taking care of, parents you're taking care of, other family members, communities, just different things you're trying to balance. And then on top of this, you have people's lives in your hands, and then you get thrown at you. Well, we don't really value your license or your title, what you're saying. We're going to make you do a prior authorization. We're going to make you jump through all these hoops. We're not going to appreciate the efforts and work that you do. Literally healthcare is, you go get a thing of groceries. Like if you were to go, say, Publix or to Kroger or wherever you have, the Traders Market, whatever, go somewhere and get your groceries, buy it, they give you the price, you pay it and you leave. Healthcare is like, here's what we're going to charge you for it. And the insurance company says, no, we don't think so. You think it's $250? We'll give you $50, right?
And then 3 months later, you get the payment.
Exactly. Then they want their $50 back, or they want to make you fight for it. So you're sitting here dealing with people's lives, and then you're having this third person in the room that's trying to tell you what to write, how to do it, and are we going to pay you for it? And then we need to make sure you document everything to a T. I literally had an insurance company audit one of my charts and say something like, I'd seen a patient, I'd given them Toradol, which was a shot for pain, and I put in the chart Toradol 60 milligrams, right? They were like, well, you didn't say it was given. You need to say Toradol 60 milligrams, I am given. And I'm like,
yeah,
are you kidding me right
because,
now?
because the saying goes, if you didn't write it, then it didn't happen.
Right.
And also the patients with the copays, you have to realize that the copay counts towards your payment. So we really need the copays, but I digress. I'm not going to go there
so
right
all
now.
of this stuff affects physicians' mental health. And so I remind people, just your average Joe, whoever folks want to say, and not to say, physicians are any pedestal, we're not, we're human just like anyone else. We have to take care of ourselves. But like you mentioned before,
and also our staff. And their well-being, because they depend on patients coming in too. So it's
absolutely.
It's like the physician gets all the blame, but we're a team, and part of the team is the insurance company and the pharmacist and the patient.
Right, exactly. And everybody has their role.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about mental health, we have this National Practitioner Database. We have this other things that if physicians reach out and they get help, or they admit that they may have, say, depression issues or anxiety, then their license at risk. So you have this whole situation where folks feel like, one, everybody's looking at me like I have everything together. I can't show any weakness. If I show weakness, then I may lose my license. And folks, don't realize, hey, we did the 4 years of medical school. You did your your residency, which could be anywhere from 3 to 10 years, and then we're continually learning. So we still have to continue to get continuing medical education credits. So we're continually learning, have all these pressures. So my thing with physicians working together and starting National Physicians Week, which was to say, hey, we have this Doctor's Day, because that's the other thing too. Doctor's Day got so diluted that literally is for everybody and their mama. So it was like Oprah, you get a car, everybody gets a car. And so my thing was, let's make, Doctor's Day expanded to National Physicians Week, 325 to 331, so we could love on our healers, talk about our physicians, let us share with the people how we love what we do, take control of our mental health, go out, take those walks, take those breaks, take time for yourself, and prioritize your health. And like you said before, see a therapist. There's nothing wrong with having a therapist. I recommend everybody gets one. And then having your faith and spirituality as a person of faith. Prayer, meditation, regular walks, all of these things, eating healthy, are things that we can do for our mental health, for our physicians, for our patients, for our children. And it's just, you cannot truly be healthy if you do not take care of your mental health. So that is just something you just can't say enough. We've got to be able to do that.
And can I add something too? I'm an addiction medicine specialist, and I just spent my whole day with 20 some odd patients, just talking about how they're dealing with their difficulties. And a lot of the times people don't have food to eat, don't have a place to live, haven't taken a shower in a few days, and that affects their mental health as well. So I say all that to say, you don't know what people are going through, especially doctors, especially patients. So just show grace in every step that you do. Show some grace. Absolutely. So I want to segue into what, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, by the way. But I want to segue into institutional bias, and I have it defined as the tendency of resources and policies and practices of institutions to operate in ways which advantage white, heterosexual, cisgendered, able-bodied male patients or employees. So, Dr. Kimberly, what do you think about the institutional bias that is faced or is not faced, or you don't want to talk about it in your practice?
So when you talk about, like you said, institutional bias, of course, it's going to be our practices, it's going to be our hospitals, it's going to be our clinics, it's going to be all of the places, because we're talking about institutional bias in healthcare, right? Because institutional bias can be in all,
it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Right?
the corporate world, whatever. So as
Yes.
far as in healthcare and in medicine, it is one of those things that is definitely the elephant in the room. And the unfortunate thing is, as we were starting to make some progress, we ended up getting a little bit of a setback. I say little bit sarcastically because it was a big deal with the Supreme Court and, in this area of affirmative action. And the reason that brings into things as institutional bias is because in order for you to fix a problem, you have to realize that it's there. And when you have people that want to ignore the problem and pretend that it doesn't, and like, oh, we're all on the same level, we're all great, everything's good and gravy, it's like, no, it's not. We still have like multiple problems that we need to do. And we have to start with our biases. And in order to start there, you have to realize you have them. Yeah. So this is basically apparent in a lot of things. And I speak, I'm a grit, as folks say, girl raised in the South. And so my thing is things I've experienced and been exposed to, I realize that a lot of these things definitely are still here. Even for myself, we had the state of Mississippi is where I grew up. We have one medical school. Now we have two medical schools. But for when I was doing medical school, we had one medical school. And so they only accept Mississippi applicants. And for my class, they had 100 students. And out of those 100 students, for the whole state of Mississippi, there were 3 Black students. 3%, myself and 2 others.
You know what? That's interesting, because out of the class of 300 that graduated in my class, 60 of them were minorities. Only 30 of them were Black. So that means the same ratio, even though it's a large class, it's the same ratio of 10%. And I want to add that 2% of all Black women physicians are represented, and 3 of them are here. So I would like to go to the comment, because Mel Vanderpool said, "Can I just say how amazing it is to see beautiful melanated female doctors?" And I clap it up, because we are only 2%. And 3 of us are here, okay? Right. And one of them is a double board certified diamond writer, by the way.
That's what we love.
Yay.
So unfortunately, yes, institutional bias is there. And I was bringing up the story about medical school because it starts even there from the people we select to be our healthcare clinicians, right? And so in order to address that, we have to have diversity. We have to have people to be included so we can see these things, discuss these things, and say, hey, you can't automatically assume just because this person is brown, Black, or other that they're going to be obese or lazy, or they're going to be on food stamps. They're going to be, all these kind of things. And the reality is a lot of those things, it's not a pro or a con for some of those things. It's the negativity we associate with them. Yeah. And it's the things that we've been taught through movies and shows and music and, just different depictions of things, and even things we've taught in our school that they've taken away. Like, when you were looking at EGFR, for those that don't know, that's the function of kidneys. And so they had a standard for white and they had a standard for Black. And, when you do some of these things, you kind of basically create this bias and the things that you see this person be, okay, this one's not going to be okay. Black women have a higher degree of pain tolerance, that kind of thing. So it's one of those things we really have to address it. We have to make sure people realize it is there. We have to make sure even as clinicians, we don't have it. There's biases sometimes against, like you say, folks that are obese or folks that don't look like us or act like us or talk like us. And, you're telling a person that may have, let's say, a particular diet, and whether it's Indian, Hispanic, and you're like, I need you to not eat rice and beans because that's not going to affect you. And that's not totally taken into context the Hispanic patients I've been told that I talk to. And they're like, that's a major part of what we eat. So we need to make sure that we are, inclusive in talking and realizing that these biases totally affect the care that we give. They totally affect the care that is provided to people, because sometimes they feel like they just aren't heard. And that's what I hear from some of my patients. They're like, I'm so glad you're here. They literally will come and say, hey, I talked to this doctor, that doctor, this doctor. I'm not going to do this cardiac defibrillator placement without your saying, okay, I'm not going to go ahead.
Representation matters.
Absolutely.
So they're seen, they're heard. And that's the role that we play. And that's how we're trying to address this institutional bias that we know is prevalent, and we know it's there, and it affects all kind of things. I mean, we can go on and on. Economics, housing, all the things that they try to basically penalize African Americans for. As we're speaking of as color on this
Black tax, right?
Exactly. That is there.
Dr. Stacy, what do you have to say? Because we have one more topic still, and we have a whole show going on. So I would like to move along. And Dr. Stacy, what do you think about institutional bias in your practice?
Well, here's what I'll say. I agree with everything that Dr. Kimberly said, and I want to acknowledge the fact that there are people out there across disciplines, so not just within medicine, but in other fields as well, who have been making an effort to try to address these institutional implicit biases that we know exist. And the unfortunate thing, however, in talking to a lot of people that do DEI work, diversity, equity, and inclusion work, is that so often those positions are figurehead positions. So, you have well-intentioned people who accept this role, who say, hey, okay, let's try to make a change. But in fact, there's not really real change desired, it seems, because
Yes,
either
and
there's
then
not a lot of support here for this. Yeah.
you see the fried chicken and watermelon being served at lunch, and this is brought to you by DEI, right?
Yes.
Go
Or
on,
we
Dr.
have, these, things like that are supposed to placate us and make us feel included when in fact we haven't really done anything to address the deeper issues that exist. Institutional bias is the thing that makes a patient think that I am either the custodial staff or a member of food services when I enter the room, even though I've spoken to them about their condition for 10 minutes, and then they still find it necessary to talk to the nurse and say, hey, I haven't seen the doctor. When is the doctor coming?
Right.
And I went into that room and I
Facts.
introduced myself appropriately. That's what
Yes.
institutional bias is.
Yeah.
Institutional bias is when Dr. Kimberly touched on this a little bit, is, rooted in the belief that Black people don't feel as much pain as white people do. And what that causes is an undertreatment of pain in Black people. And I will tell you that, as unfortunate as it sounds, this also happens in the world of pediatrics.
Yes.
There have been studies done about children that come to the ER for appendicitis, and white children, looking at white children, Black children, and how that is treated. And it's been studied, it's been documented that Black children were not treated for their pain adequately in the same way that white children were. And imagine going to the emergency department with an acute condition that is typically treated by surgery. So we're talking about people that have legitimate pain, and this is not being treated. Also, I've seen this happen with children who deal with sickle cell, which
Mhm.
unfortunately a lot
Yes.
of times is encountered only
Black people.
by Black people, right? So
Yeah.
you can imagine like how awful it is when we're not treating a child who's dealing with a sickle cell pain crisis. We're not adequately handling the pain of acute chest syndrome simply because we either think that they're lying about how much pain they're in. So, we don't want to give them too much pain medication, or we're choosing to ignore the objective data that we have, like an elevated heart rate that is pointing to the fact that this person is in pain.
Yeah.
So institutional bias, it exists. And it is my hope that we continue to call a thing, that we speak about it, because the other thing that's happening in medicine too is that there is a concerted effort to dismantle these DEI programs that
Yes.
have been implemented as well.
Yeah.
And, I know that you mentioned that there's another topic, but really quickly, I think it's worth noting what some of our dermatology friends are going through.
Yes.
And
Yes.
with respect to racism, institutional bias, and the like, essentially, there is an effort to dismantle DEI programs within dermatology training programs. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute, what is going on? And we have to really ask ourselves, well, first of all, why is this important in dermatology specifically? And I'll tell you why. It's because we know that dermatologic conditions look differently on melanated skin.
That's
So
right.
we need practitioners who are comfortable looking at melanated skin, who are experienced looking at melanated skin. And we also need Black dermatologists. We need dermatologists of color who have the lived experience as well of the skin that we're evaluating. But instead, there is a collection of dermatologists who have essentially signed a petition that said, you know what, we need to get rid of these efforts. Any efforts to also try to increase the numbers of Black and brown dermatologists to treat the Black and brown patients oh, let's get rid of that too. And
Yeah.
so this is a problem. And so the other thing that I'll say when it comes to institutional and implicit bias is I have noticed that there's a real problem with a willingness to call a thing a thing. So if we say that this implicit bias is rooted in racism, nobody wants to be called a racist.
Right.
People still want to
that makes people feel
behave like racist.
uncomfortable.
Yeah. And yeah, because we know that being racist is bad. So nobody wants to be called a bad thing. But I certainly wish that there was less focus on being called a bad thing as opposed to
And addressing the
doing
bad
a bad
right?
thing.
Yeah.
How about if you don't want to, if you don't want to be called this, how about your behavior exemplify the type of the way that you would like to be described?
Yeah.
And so until we're really willing to address what the issue is and not just say, okay, well, we've checked this box. There's a Black person. Oh, and she's also female. So yay for diversity. And like you said, we put fried chicken and watermelon in the cafeteria. So there you go. You should be happy.
Yep.
Like, so
all
much,
the boxes checked.
it's so much more than that.
Yep. So I would like to segue into the maternal health in the U.S. versus other countries. Do you know that the United States is the last of the first world countries that have a ratio of 16.4 deaths per 100,000 in the maternal death rates? Now that maternal death does not include the morbidity. That means people who survived that doesn't include them. So we as a country are last behind Russia in maternal deaths. And then on top of that, the Black women or those that identify as Black, that means like mixed race or like, you know, whatever ratio you want to call yourself, you're Black, okay? We are 4 times more likely. That means 68.9%. 68.9 per 100,000 deaths happen every year in Black communities, Black mothers especially. Black mothers are the foundation of every family. So you have to realize how grave this is. And we suffer, and I suffered, and a lot of people suffer. So what do you have to say about that, Dr. Stacy? Because you are a pediatrician, that means you handle those babies after the mother passes away.
Mm-hmm. Whew, yeah. So, this, again, the maternal morbidity and mortality in this country is abysmal across the board, as you've described, but it is especially dire in the Black community. And I think the first thing we have to say is, well, what is going on? Like, why is that? Right? Why are we having these outcomes that affect families for generations? Right? Because to your point, that is what I see, because I'm taking care of these children who don't have a mother to raise them. I'm happy and so thankful to be here with you ladies today because I am a mother of 2. And I'm here to tell you about it. But not everybody can say the same thing. And what we know about the disparity between white women and Black women when it comes to maternal health is that even socioeconomic status and education, those don't protect you either.
Nope. No, they don't.
We, again, like going back to what I was saying before, we really have to call a thing a thing. And the other thing, when we're comparing ourselves to other countries too, let's be clear. A lot of times maternal deaths are preventable. The 3 leading causes of preventable maternal deaths are blood clots in the lung, hypertension or high blood pressure, and blood loss or hemorrhage. So these are things that are typically routinely screened for before, during, and after labor. But the difference when we're talking about white women versus Black women is, are we listening to the patient? I feel
Exactly.
like a lot of time what it comes
exactly.
down. And an example that people often use is Serena Williams.
Yes.
Shared her birthing story, and I'm so glad that she did, because
I'm so glad too.
Imagine you have celebrity status, you have wealth, you have access. There's no shortage of resources. You are intelligent.
You even have a white husband. It doesn't matter.
There you go. You have a white husband.
It doesn't matter.
All of the things.
Yeah.
All of the things that should and that in other settings would be protective mechanisms for you, but even still, that woman was not listened to.
That's true.
We had
So
no problem.
we have to bring this episode to a close, unfortunately. So I would like to let you guys just display and show where everybody can find you. And also, here's a gem. We have to say gem drop in that too. So first, Dr. Kimberly.
All right. So first, very quickly, I'm going to just finish off the maternal mortality. Yeah. I mean, because the reality is, like you say, it's such a huge issue. And I know we have a short amount of time. As a family medicine physician, I was trained to do OB, but presently I don't do it in my practice. So I lean on my colleagues. So I definitely reached out to my OBGYN colleague, Dr. Maureen Granford, as well as my OB colleague, Dr. Crandall Chambers, and was just like, hey, you know, what are the points and messages we needed to get out to the group? And so a part of this is I definitely want to empower our audience. I know sometimes we talk about things we think about, oh, it's just war and me. Like you say, it is abysmal, the fact that our maternal mortality in this country compared to other developed countries, it should not be that high. I mean, our tax dollars and healthcare dollars and the training and all the stuff we have should make things better. And we have to listen to our patients. But I also want people to realize there are things that they can do themselves, right? We want to make sure that you have good, healthy habits. And of course, that you're eating well, that you're not smoking, that you're not drinking excessively, that you're getting early prenatal care, right? That you're also making sure you have healthy habits and surround yourself with healthy people. Go ahead and try to get to those areas that you can have a good OB or a hospital of maternal fetal medicine. And these are, you know, tips I'm getting for, like I say, Dr. Chambers and Rainford, just making sure that you are also taking accountability for your health, but also speaking up. And we know sometimes we're not heard, but you definitely can't be heard if you don't speak up. So if you think there's something wrong that's not going right, or you don't think you're being heard, then one, you can let your feet do the talking for you and find somewhere else. And then you also can just make sure that you're taking care of your health and habits and things like that. So I just wanted to throw those things out there. As far as myself, so delighted to be here, so honored and humbled and just excited about it. And like I said, I did write a book, so I'm gonna use the opportunity that they've given me graciously. The sun is rising. I'm trying to get the lighting right. But anyway, the sun is rising on inspireandempower.org. So it's 10 strategies to get unstuck, find your voice, walk in your purpose, live passionately, and step outside of your box. And this is just my heart to everyone to basically say that we all have a story to share, and our story hopefully can bless and help others. So I hope everyone will check that out. If you're a physician or a medical student, join us on Physicians Working Together. We're about to celebrate, National Physicians Week.
Yeah, next month.
We give out medical student scholarships. I love the fact that we give it out for something non-academic. So we've had medical students that have roller skated, have cooked the steak, have sung, played the piano. It just shows people that as physicians, we're beyond the white coat. And our motto for 2024 is medicine and more in 2024. So I want to hear from all of you about ways that you can celebrate your doc, and you on the panel, ladies. I'm looking for some folks that we can do something like this again and just share.
Yeah. Well, we've been asked to have a part 2. So if you're up to it, part two. Dr. Stacy, where can we find you?
Yes. So thank you all so much for inviting me this evening. It's been a real honor to be able to talk about these really, really important topics, especially to our community.
The hour went fast too.
It did. It really did. Oh my goodness. So where can you find me? And also a gem. So a gem that I would share with the audience is to continue to advocate for yourself. And it's sort of similar to what Dr. Kimberly said, but also don't be afraid to let someone that you love advocate for you.
Yes.
And I say that as the mom of a 7-month-old, so someone who recently delivered and sort of had to navigate the healthcare system myself. And I remember saying to my husband, I said, if at any point I am not able to advocate for myself, then here's what I want you to do. And we talked about it on more than one occasion. I was like, boom, 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 boom. If they say something that doesn't sound right to you, then don't be afraid to question it. Like, don't be timid, because even as an educated woman, even as a physician and so on and so forth, I still was worried.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. So I say that to say, again, even if and when you don't feel listened to, continue to use your voice and advocate for yourself. So that is the gem that I would like to share with this audience. In terms of where you can find me across all social media at Dr. Stacy MD. That's DrStacy MD. And similar to Dr. Kimberly, I also have a best-selling book called The Fine Print. I hope you guys can see it there. The Fine Print, the between the lines of parenting, children, and relationship building. Because as I mentioned at the top of the hour, I'm also a parenting coach. I'm very passionate about children and their families and making sure that we are not continuing maybe some unhealthy generational patterns. I think that parents should be supported in their parenthood journey. And so that is what I do in addition to practicing pediatrics. So if you want to transform generations with me, you can also check me out at http://phenomenalparentingpower.com. And for this audience, I'm going to put a coupon code and I'll put it in the chat as well. But the code will be DIAMOND for 20% off of services because I really want to make sure
That's
that
nice.
access is not an issue over here.
And I didn't even have to ask for it. See?
Oh, no way.
And,
I appreciate the audience for sure.
And you can find me on diamondwriters.com. Also, we have a 4th anthology book coming out this spring, and it's called She Is, and we are just fired up for it. So I'm really looking forward to that. So back to we have a lot of compliments. We're definitely asked to come back, so I hope you guys are open to it because we are a power team here, which I didn't even.
I think so.
God is good, huh? God is good
all the time.
Yes. Oh, and my gym,
yes.
My gym, Dr. Joyce,
yes.
My gym for everyone, dropping a gym. Woo! It's to encourage and remind everyone to live life well, emotionally, financially, physically, spiritually. Live it well, live it abundantly. You can do it.
And my gem is to just live life to the fullest. You guys have only one life to live, so live it the best. And like Dr. Stacy said, have your family advocate for you.
Yes,
because that is the most important thing. I remember Dr. Kimberly said the beauty salon and your best friends. Find a therapist. They are tired. Okay. They are tired. So find a therapist like help.com, also BetterHelp or just some online resources. Just find better help. Right. So
yes, there are resources. Absolutely.
Yes. So
awesome.
we have a few minutes left. I actually like 60 seconds left. So just looking back in the comments, just diamond drops, which is our way of showing love. Also, love this podcast. And also the level of information and intellect in this episode is too much. We have to come back. We have to come back.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so we reached an hour. So I guess we can go on or what? Because let me see here. Oh, thank you for tuning in, guys. Be sure to catch the next episode next Wednesday for the launch of our March. That's What's Her Story series, and always continue to hustle and shine.
Yes.